Imagine a city so advanced, so powerful that it seemed unstoppable. But what if I told you that it vanished, sinking into the ocean without a trace? Is it possible for an entire civilization to disappear like that, leaving no evidence behind? Or was it all just a tale told by ancient storytellers? If we're talking about Atlantis, we have to talk about one man, Plato. Yes, the same guy who taught us about the cave, knowledge, and basically founded Western philosophy. But apparently he also enjoyed telling epic stories. More than 2,000 years ago, Plato wrote about an incredibly advanced civilization that existed around 9,000 years before his time. It was a powerful empire with technology and wealth that would make even King Midas jealous, but one day, boom, it disappeared beneath the ocean. No trace, no farewell. Not even a sad, "see you in another life, brother." Now, before we get too excited, we have to ask ourselves, was Plato writing real history, or did he just make up a philosophical tale to make a point about corrupt societies and power? Because let's be honest, it wouldn't be the first time a philosopher threw in some exaggeration for extra drama. The texts where Atlantis appears are Timaeus and Critias. In them, Plato describes the city with incredible detail. Circular canals, a fair political system, unimaginable riches, a paradise on earth that, according to him, was destroyed by the gods because the Atlanteans became too arrogant. Yeah, it sounds like a punishment straight out of an episode of Game of Thrones. But here's where it gets interesting. Plato claimed this story wasn't his own. He said his grandfather told it to him, who heard it from a guy named Solon, who supposedly learned it in Egypt. So basically, this is the most legendary case of a friend told me in history. And this is where things get tricky. If this story was passed down like a giant game of telephone for centuries, how do we know it wasn't distorted along the way? I mean, if today we can't even trust someone to repeat gossip correctly without exaggerating, imagine a story from 11,000 years ago. Let's talk about the theories. All right, we now know Plato's version of Atlantis. But here comes the big question. Was it real or just some kind of ancient philosophical fan fiction? For centuries, the idea of a lost advanced civilization has fascinated historians, scientists, and let's be honest, more than a few treasure hunters. And the reason is simple. Plato wasn't just some random guy making up a story. He was one of the most influential thinkers of all time. So when he described a powerful island nation that vanished in a single day, people paid attention. The problem is that no physical evidence of its existence has ever been found. But that hasn't stopped theories from spreading. Some believe Atlantis was based on a real place, others think it was just a metaphor, and of course, there are those who claim it was home to ancient aliens. Yep, we're going there. Let's start with the Minoan theory, one of the most widely accepted explanations. The Minoans were an incredibly advanced civilization that thrived on the island of Crete around 1600 BCE. They had impressive palaces, a thriving economy, and even a writing system that still hasn't been fully deciphered. But then disaster struck, the volcanic eruption of Thera, now known as Santorini. And it wasn't just any eruption, it was one of the largest in history, triggering tsunamis, covering the sky with ash and wiping out entire cities. Some believe this catastrophe devastated the Minoans, leaving them vulnerable to invaders. If this theory is true, then Atlantis wasn't a myth. It was a distorted memory of a real tragedy. But there's a problem. If Atlantis was Crete, why didn't Plato just say so? And besides, he placed it beyond the Pillars of Hercules, meaning beyond the Strait of Gibraltar. This has led other researchers to search further west. Enter the Atlantic theory. Some believe Atlantis was an island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, possibly near the Azores. These islands sit on a massive underwater plateau, leading some to speculate that they might be the remnants of a sunken civilization. It's even said that Christopher Columbus heard legends about a lost land beneath the ocean. Going even further, some suggest that Atlantis might have been in South America. In Bolivia, the ancient city of Tiahuanaco has ruins that could be older than previously thought, with astronomically aligned structures similar to Egypt's pyramids. Could this be a remnant of the legendary Atlantis? And now, the most extreme theory: Antarctica. According to this idea, Atlantis was located in Antarctica before it was buried under ice. Supporters of this theory believe a shift in Earth's crust, what they call crustal displacement, moved the continent to its current position, freezing everything. Sounds crazy, right? But some ancient maps, like the famous Piri Reis map, show Antarctica without ice, centuries before its supposed discovery in 1820. How do we explain that? And yes, here come the aliens. Some believe Atlantis wasn't just an advanced civilization, but an extraterrestrial colony. The theory suggests that the Atlanteans had incredibly advanced technology, including flying machines, energy weapons, and even genetic engineering. But when their civilization collapsed, they didn't sink. They simply left the planet. Now, let's be serious for a moment. What if Atlantis never existed at all? Many scholars believe Plato made it all up as a moral lesson. He wasn't writing history, but rather a warning about arrogance and corruption. Atlantis' downfall would symbolize what happens to civilizations that think they are invincible. But here's an interesting detail. If Atlantis was just a metaphor, why have so many cultures believed in its existence? Even in ancient times, historians like Strabo and Pliny the Elder took the story seriously. During the Renaissance, explorers like Ignatius Donnelly dedicated their lives to finding it. And now, with modern technology, the question remains unanswered. Thanks to sonar and satellites, we've mapped vast portions of the ocean, but we haven't found a submerged city that matches Plato's description. Sure, we've discovered incredible underwater ruins like Dwarka in India or Pavlopetri in Greece, but nothing on the scale of Atlantis. So, was Atlantis real? A misinterpreted historical event? An exaggerated metaphor? Or something entirely different? Until solid proof appears, it will remain one of the greatest mysteries of all time, fueling debates, research, and of course, conspiracy theories. The only thing that's certain, people will never stop searching for it. After exploring the theories about Atlantis, it's time to address a crucial question. What evidence do we actually have? Is there any concrete proof that this legendary civilization existed? Or is it simply a myth that has persisted over time? The biggest problem with the story of Atlantis is that to this day, no irrefutable archaeological evidence has been found. There are no temples, inscriptions, or artifacts clearly identifiable as Atlantean. Unlike other ancient civilizations such as Egypt or Mesopotamia, which left tangible traces of their existence, Atlantis remains an enigma. However, that hasn't stopped researchers, adventurers, and even scientists from trying to find it. Over the centuries, various alleged discoveries have emerged that some claim could be related to Atlantis. But how solid are these findings? One of the most mentioned sites is the underwater structure found near Bimini Island in the Bahamas. In 1968, divers discovered what appeared to be a submerged stone pathway known as the Bimini Road. Some believe it could be part of a lost city, while geologists argue that it is a natural limestone formation. Another possible candidate is the site of Pavlopetri in Greece. This is a submerged city over 5,000 years old, with well-defined streets, buildings, and plazas. Although there is no evidence linking it to Atlantis, the discovery proves that submerged civilizations have existed in human history. There's also the case of the city of Dwarka in India. It is believed that this city, mentioned in ancient Hindu texts, was swallowed by the sea thousands of years ago. In recent years, archaeologists have found remains of submerged structures that could confirm its existence. But again, there is no direct connection to Atlantis. Beyond these discoveries, some researchers have turned to ancient maps in search of clues. One of the most intriguing is the Piri Reis map, an Ottoman document from the 16th century that depicts parts of the world with astonishing accuracy. Some have interpreted certain details of the map as evidence of a lost continent, but this theory remains highly debated. In more recent times, technological advancements have allowed us to explore the ocean floor with greater precision. Thanks to sonar and satellites, we have mapped large sections of the ocean and discovered underwater structures that have piqued the interest of researchers. However, none of them have provided conclusive evidence of Atlantis' existence. So, if there is no solid evidence, why do so many people continue to believe in Atlantis? One reason could be humanity's desire to find answers to the great mysteries of the past. The idea that an advanced civilization may have existed before recorded history is fascinating and makes us wonder what else might be hidden beneath the sea. Another explanation is that Atlantis may have been based on real events but distorted over time. Some natural disasters, such as the eruption of Thera that affected the Minoans, could have inspired the story. It is possible that accounts of destroyed civilizations became mixed with myths and legends until they turned into what we know today as Atlantis. In the end, without tangible proof, Atlantis remains a mystery. Until archaeological evidence confirming its existence is found, it will continue to be a story wrapped in speculation, theories, and of course, the imagination of those who dream of discovering a lost civilization. Now that we have explored the theories and the lack of evidence about Atlantis, it is time to see how this story has evolved over time. What began as a tale by Plato has turned into the center of conspiracy theories, an inspiration for books and movies, and even the foundation of pseudo-scientific beliefs. The mystery of Atlantis has served as a blank canvas for all kinds of interpretations. Some see it as a lost civilization with advanced technology, others as the key to explaining humanity's hidden history. And, of course, there are those who believe its inhabitants were not from this planet. One recurring theme in conspiracy theories is that Atlantis was not destroyed, but that its knowledge was deliberately hidden. According to these ideas, the survivors of Atlantis passed on their wisdom to later cultures, such as Egypt or the Maya, influencing their architecture and astronomy. One of the most popular versions is that the Atlanteans possessed technology so advanced that even today, we would be far from matching it. Stories mention energy crystals, flying machines, and even knowledge of alternate dimensions. These ideas have been fueled by writers and theorists of the unknown, though, as expected, without any real evidence to support them. But if there is one theory that has truly captured the imagination of many, it is the connection with extraterrestrials. Some claim that Atlantis was a colony of beings from another world who arrived on Earth in ancient times and helped develop human civilization. And when their experiment was over, they simply left. Beyond conspiracy theories, Atlantis has left a huge mark on pop culture. The idea of a lost civilization has been used in books, comics, video games, and movies of all kinds. From classic science fiction to superhero adventures, the image of a sunken city full of secrets continues to fascinate audiences. Movies like Atlantis, The Lost Empire by Disney, or comic book stories like Aquaman from DC have kept the legend alive, transforming it into a symbol of the unknown and the mysterious. And not just in fiction, even in the real world, the idea of finding Atlantis remains a topic for documentaries and expeditions. Why does this story remain so appealing? Perhaps because it combines many elements that fascinate us: mystery, the possibility of uncovering something hidden, and the idea that there was once a time when humanity was more advanced than we believe. In the end, Atlantis remains a powerful myth, capable of adapting to each new generation. From ancient philosophers to modern writers, everyone has found in it a reflection of their own ideas and desires. And as long as we keep searching for answers, Atlantis will continue to live on in our imagination. After exploring the theories, the evidence, or lack thereof, and the impact of Atlantis on culture, we arrive at the final question. Is Atlantis a myth or reality? Throughout history, many civilizations have left their mark through temples, inscriptions, and artifacts. But Atlantis has none of that. Everything we know comes from Plato's accounts, written over 9,000 years after the supposed events. Without archaeological evidence, we cannot say it existed as he described. However, that doesn't mean there isn't some truth to the story. Many legends are based on real events that, over time, have transformed into myths. Cataclysms like the eruption of Thera or the sinking of Doggerland have inspired tales of lost lands. Perhaps Plato took references from these disasters and crafted the story of Atlantis as a philosophical lesson. It's also possible that Atlantis is a mix of different ancient civilizations. Advanced cultures like the Minoans or Egyptians had remarkable knowledge for their time. Maybe their legacy was misinterpreted over the centuries. turning into the story of a lost continent. So, what does all this tell us? That Atlantis, whether it was a real civilization or not, is a reflection of our own desires and fears. The idea of an advanced society that disappeared without a trace is fascinating. It makes us wonder if we truly know all of humanity's history, or if there are still secrets left to uncover. In the end, Atlantis remains a mystery. There is no conclusive proof, but the search continues. Whether as a symbol of exploration, a warning about the fate of civilizations, or simply a great enigma, its story lives on. And maybe that's what really matters. We've reached the end of this journey. And now the question is, was Atlantis a real place, or just the first great fake news in history? Let me know in the comments. Unless you're an ancient Greek philosopher, in which case, welcome back. Thanks for joining me on this journey. If you want more stories like this, subscribe and leave a like.